Good morning. How's everyone doing on this happy Monday morning? God bless you. We're glad that you're here this morning, and we're excited because it's October. Of course, it's the early part of the month, almost mid-October it seems. But we do know that God has great things in store for us, and I'm telling you, already October is full of surprises. There are things that are happening that I believe in this season distinctively to October. And I'm hearing the Lord saying in my spirit, He said, October is the shift month. This is the month in which God is going to do exponential things, but included in that, we're looking at God is about to do things that we weren't expecting Him to do, and it's a turnaround month. We're in our turnaround season. And for those of you who are here, you're new to this channel. If you will, please like and subscribe, share this the video because I believe it's something that will be a blessing to you and to your loved ones, your family, and your friends. And again, you can click on that like and subscribe and share button right below the screen there. And thank you again for joining our live right here on Monday morning. I'm excited. Yes, I am. It's early, but when I tell you, I believe I have a word for you today, and I believe it's a word in season. The thing that I heard the Lord speak in my spirit today, He said, things aren't always as they appear. Why did He say this? I had a situation, and maybe some time ago, and the Lord began to show me some things about some battles that I had endured, and there were some things that were brought to me, and there were things that had been stored away for some time, and they looked weathered. And if you looked at the packages or whatever, because they were in a kind of an outside building that were subject to the elements, the things that were in the boxes that were stored away, they didn't look like they did like 10, 12 years ago. But the items that when I was able to look at them and open the boxes, the things that were there that were pristine at the time when they was put away, and some things, had deteriorated a little bit. It was like things that were made of like leather, just different things, but they didn't look like they did when I first stored them. And the reason why I'm saying this, um, to the average observer who may have been standing there looking at the things, they probably thought, you know what, they were weathered, uh, things like that. But to them, it was like, well, this is just an absolute. I mean, it's a loss. These are things that are just don't mount to anything. But what they don't realize, and even in your life, the reason why I'm making this connection, sometimes what appears to be to someone else, as far as your life, what appears to be either a mess or the struggles that they saw, they're actually they're your scars. They're battle scars, and this is the reason why the Lord is saying this. The things that you have been through are battle scars. To other people, when they look at your life, they don't know the struggles that you've been through. They don't know the difficulties you face. And from the outside looking in, when you're walking with God, one thing I have found, just because some people's lives they don't face a lot of things, they haven't been through a lot. And, but for people who are truly walking with God, you're going to face a lot of battles, and especially when you're chosen and anointed. You're going to face a lot more battles than other people, the average people, because they'll see you every time you go through trials. Your trials are going to be bigger because your destiny is bigger. So when they look at your life like they're looking at the contents of this box, it gave the appearance that it's like, oh my God, things are deteriorated. And they're like, oh, what's going on? What happened to you? And they're looking at your life and, oh, looks like this person is always going through something. And but I'm gonna tell you something. When you live right, when you're doing right, you're living for the Lord, you're gonna face some battles in life. The enemy is gonna come at you with everything he's got to destroy you. But God said things are not always as they appear. To some people looking on the outside of your life, they're looking at you, they said, "Oh my God, this person, they have uh they have gone through this and that and loss and they lost their homes or they've been evicted or they lost their car and all this kind of stuff." They have no clue what you have walked through. And it wasn't because you were irresponsible. It wasn't because you were lazy or because you weren't working. Even right now, many of you who are listening to this message, you are going through a lot and you're facing layoffs, all kind of stuff. But the Lord said there's a silver lining to all of this because he said again, things aren't always as they appear. There are positive things that are coming out of this, and I want you to be encouraged because, you may be looking at it in one sense, but the Lord, like I said, the contents of that box, if I had looked at that, the average onlooker would have said, well, gosh, this person, it appears that they had let things go, and oh, look at this, and it's to them, it's like it's weathered, and it was a mess to them. But God says, no, take another look at the things, the contents in these boxes, because they've been stored away for a while. And he said, these are your battle scars. In the boxes, there were pictures from Christmases long ago. There are pictures of my children. There were, and I'm talking about myself, there were pictures of my children that had been stored away. Like I said, elements had gotten to some of them, so they had aged a little bit. There were neatly colored, brightly colored pictures from their elementary years. There was beautiful photos, little things that they had drawn, little notes that I had written, my journals, just different things. And for some people, that may not have meant anything, or things that you have may not seem like much to someone else, but God said, literally, when you can look back at things, maybe some of you, you might even go in your basement or your garage and you look through different boxes of your life. And God said, within those, the contents, there is something, He said, you can see where the busy times in your life where your children were growing up and you were putting, you look in there, there's papers, maybe there's bills that you had paid or had difficulty paying and you overcame that. I saw everything in there. God, he said, no, these are battle scars. He said, because to the average onlooker, like let's say like for a mother who's had children or a person who's been at war or whatever, or you've been through something major and you wind up physically wounded, or like a mother who's had children, she has scar. Some have scarring on their stomach where they had stretch marks and things like that. Those are what I call battle scars. And to some, it looks like, well, it's horrible. But God said, no, you don't know how much joy came out of from that child that was born out of, when the mother, yes, she had those, the stretch marks from the birth where she had carried the baby. But for mothers who love their children, they will say, you know what? It was worth every single thing that I had to go through. And that's the thing. When I looked at the box, I said, you know what? I looked in every one of them, and God began to show me. He said, everything in those boxes, he said, you overcame. There was war, there was battling there's it's literally, it told a story of what my life looked like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. The reason why I'm saying this is now many of you have faced things, but God, He turned everything around. And if you are facing some things in your life right now, God said He's turning it around. It's not as, He said, things aren't as they appear because God is going to use situations that you are in or have been through for your elevation. God says, don't look at things as they appear, because to the average onlooker, they even looking at your life right now, they are scrutinizing you. They're saying things about you, saying things to you, and even throwing things up in your face that you went through. And it wasn't pretty. Some of your lives weren't pretty at all. You went through a whole lot, but it wasn't because that you weren't living right. It wasn't because you weren't doing right. It's actually the battles that you were facing was an onslaught of the enemy meant to destroy you. And God said, what the devil meant for evil to destroy you, God is going to turn it around in your favor. God says sometimes what seems like a setback is really a setup for something greater. And this is what I feel. I feel a deep, I feel just a deep resolve in my spirit to tell you today that things are about to get better. You're about to see your blessing show up. And when it does, God is going to use exponential things that you thought were lost or what appear to be a loss were actually things that came to bless you. And again, I'm going back to the contents of the box. I said, Lord, I literally saw my life, part of my life story unfold in those boxes. My daughter's graduation cap and gown were in there, something beautiful and special. There were things like when I had gotten married years ago, wedding invitations, and even when I opened up one of the boxes, it had a list of like the wedding guests at the wedding, and there were names and signatures on there, people who had passed away. It was over 30 some years ago, but people, it was so special to me. I found graduation invitations. I found things that I had just letters, a letter from a friend and cousin years ago that was so precious when they were in college 30 years ago. Just the things that I found was like, I said, oh my God, it was just like, and my children began to look through the boxes, and every box held a story. There was toys, and even things that they had as teenagers uh, when they were younger. And we just began to reminisce from the boxes, everything that we had walked through, the happiness, the joy, the joyous times that we experienced. It was wonderful. And like I said, they looked a little weathered. There were some of the items, obviously we weren't going to salvage. We would take, to the dumpster, or whatever, what have you. But there was so many memories. There was Christmas um, ornaments that I had, literally my first Christmas at that time when I was married at the time of my first husband. Well, was my only husband, but anyway, that's personal. But anyway, there's things a lot of times that we forget. It's like a 30-year it's like a snapshot of my life over 30 years. And I began to think about, the different things I had trainings in there, information, books, notebooks from college, just things that I had forgotten. And God said, He said, I'm sending you a gentle reminder that there's even some of the stuff I've been praying I hadn't seen in years, and discovered some things in there that I asked God like just a few days ago to bring them to me. And I didn't know where they were, but I said, Lord, wherever it is, I believe that you're going to bring these things to me. And there were some photos in there that I had forgotten about, but I knew that they were somewhere and they were in those boxes. And I said, thank you, Lord. Pictures of my daughter's first day of kindergarten. I mean, it's just beautiful things like that. I know I'm talking about a lot of personal things, but I'm just saying things are not always as they appear. Sometimes you're facing setbacks, you're going through a trial right now where it appears as though you're losing, but God says you're about to win because He is setting you up for something greater. What looks like for that is lost may actually be a growth in disguise. And I learned, even looking at those things throughout the losses, throughout the things in my life, I realized that during that time, it was actually, I was growing. I could see even in the journals and the things that I wrote about, and even just the different, like your first house that you bought, and your car. It's just the different um, letters and even the bills you like, and you realize when you look at the things that you thought were big at that time, how you overcame every single thing, everything God said you have walked through in your life, everything that you had come up against. You can look back now, and even now, if you're facing situations, being taunted, people saying all manner of evil against you, but God said He's going to turn it around for your good. He said, because what the enemy meant to destroy you, or what it felt like destruction, even at that time, God brought you through every single thing. And even now, God said, I'm going to bring you out. I'm going to take you through this, and you're going to see my mighty hand at work because it's a divine setup. God says sometimes what seemed to be lost, and even through all that, when I was looking through the boxes at the time, what appeared to be lost was actually my growth was attached to that. It was my growth in disguise, and I'm hearing the Lord saying, "What you're going through right now is literally growth in disguise. Is growing pains in the midst of that." And God is going to use, just like He did with Joseph. I think we talked about this the other day. Joseph went. He literally went from the pit to the palace, and everything, every single thing that he went through. When he went to, he was in prison. First, he was at Potiphar's house. He was sold into slavery, which was seemed to be horrible. Then he went. God blessed him. He was blessed there, and then Potiphar saw his work, and he elevated him. He became like an accountant, his bookkeeper in his house, and then of course, his wife again, she lied on him. He wound up in prison, and then God used him. He was there in the prison with two other men who were there. He had met the baker and the butler, and God allowed him to prophesy to them. And through God's gift in him, God raised him up uh, interpret the dream of Pharaoh at that time, and he literally made him second command in Egypt. And this man, he wound up, God gave him wisdom, and he gave him a prophecy that was literally save Egypt. And many souls were even his own family, the ones who put him in the pit. They had to wind up coming to him, as he had already told them years before, that God raised him up and he allowed them to prosper during the time of famine. God is going to use what you're going through for something bigger and much greater than you think. And it's throughout those things, although it wasn't pleasant for Joseph, God was growing him and preparing him for his elevation. And can I not tell you today that what you are facing is the thing that God is going to use to elevate you? All the stones that they're throwing at you, God is building something bigger. All the words, with every word that you're saying, God is building the framework of your life to make you into something greater. They don't even realize that every time they do something towards you, you can use it positively in a positive way. God is going to use it to bless you, because you know what? This is preparation time. Your testing is preparing you for the God says He's using it when He gets ready to promote you. I remember being in school all those years. We had to take tests every year throughout the year. And then we had our final test at the end of the year. And I remember we had a state test, a state exam that we had to take, that we had to pass every year. And guess what? When we had passed all of our tests, then we were promoted to the next grade. God said, I'm using this test to promote you. He said, I'm going to use it. He said, sometimes they'll be talking about you, but I always learned that the best advertising is by word of mouth. God said that they're going to talk about you, but He said, but your name is going to be discussed in rooms that you know not of. And God is going to take you before great men and women, and God is going to allow them to come to you. You're about to be discovered. God is about to show you off or display you to someone who's about to bless you. God says, don't judge the moment too soon. Things are not always they appear. Sometimes the roughest stones hide the brightest gems. Can I say that again? Sometimes the roughest stones hide the brightest gems. Even when life doesn't make sense, We got to trust that God is working behind the scenes. You know, again, it seems like what appears to be a loss right now, you feel like you're facing a setback, but your setback is going to be your setup. And even the things that God, Genesis, the story about Joseph found in Genesis 50 and 20, he said, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good to bring about that many people should be kept alive." Everything that Joseph, again, he said, he said, he even told him, "What you meant evil against me, God meant it for good." Everything that you're facing, God is going to use it for his benefit and creating a better life for you. He's going to make it good for you. Sometimes, and as we close out, sometimes life takes turns we don't even understand. You know, betrayal, loss, disappointment, or even delay can happen. But it may even look like everything when it feels like it or seems as though it's falling apart. Things are not always as they appear. What others intended for your harm, God can turn into a blessing. You know, Joseph, as we said, was sold into slavery, forgotten in prison, and even falsely accused. Yet all of it positioned him for purpose. And God is saying, He said, your posture and your attitude in the midst of this trial that you're facing, He said, it's going to make all the difference. He said, don't complain. He said, but seek my face. He said, worship. He said, prayer, praise, and my word is what's going to deliver you. And then again, uh, we have to understand that even though Joseph went through all of that, God positioned him for purpose, and God is positioning you for your purpose. When the time is right, remember that God will elevate you, even as He did Joseph when He elevated him to govern Egypt and save lives. The same God who turned Joseph's pain into promotion is the same God who's going to turn your pain into promotion, and He's working behind the scenes of your life. And although what seems, around you, you're looking around you, and what appears to be uh, total chaos and what appears to be a mess or messy or things that you went through, remember that those are your battle scars. And you do not have to be ashamed of what you went through or what you face, because God is bringing something greater out of it. Again, it seems like, even for some, I'm hearing the Lord saying, He says, sometimes you may be feeling like God is silent, but keep in mind that He's working behind the scenes through every situation that you're going through, and that you're going to come out on top. You're going to come out successful. And there are ones that even those who have been speaking evil against you, even as God is exposing a lot of things and people or things that have been happening in your life, God is going to use it for His glory. So don't lose heart. God will make it good. Remember that your story isn't over. It's just unfolding according to God's perfect plan. So I pray that you've been blessed by this message. I want you to hold on. Don't give up. Understand and know that everything in your life that you had to go through is for a reason. And those are your battle scars. And you can wear them with pride and knowing that, what God can, God can take what was meant for evil. God can take the things that have happened to you, and He can use it for His glory. And again, He's going to use it for your promotion. So y'all have a blessed day. We thank you again for joining us right here on Restored Living with Rosalind on our morning show. We're always happy to have you. It's a blessing today, and I pray that your day is blessed. Go with God. And again, we want you to join us on our next broadcast. And as we have October, we're going to be announcing some things that are coming up during this month. God is doing some amazing things behind the scenes, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to serve. And again, also, we appreciate any donations, any gifts of any size you can donate to this ministry. And as God leads us to continue to get the word out to the nations, and to do ministry, and to minister and to preach and to believe God for lost souls. That's why we're here. We're here to encourage you to be a blessing. Take care. We'll see you next time. Have a good day and have a great week. Bye bye. We'll be back again tomorrow on early tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Keep in mind that as we're here every morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern, every weekday. Have a blessed day, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.